How you doing? It's Niall Keady here from Balbriggan News, and I'm just here with Cathal Boland from the FOIRA, and he's going to explain his position on that and exactly what the FOIRA is. And we've got some local people here that want to tell us about the Sack of Balbriggan, which is commemorated this weekend. It's been 100 years, and we've got these people together to give their version of accounts and what they know, and maybe some inside information that we haven't heard before. I'm going to pass over now to Cathal, who's going to introduce everybody that's here.
Right, thank you, Niall. Vincent Donnelly, who is long-term Balbriggan resident, he originally was from Key Street. Vincent, I don't think it's wrong to say you're around a long time, so you heard lots of stories from people who were actually there at the time. So
most of them from my life.
Yeah, so that we've got almost the next best thing to first-hand information. Eugene, who is also Balbriggan man and a member of Fingal Old IRA. Commemorative Society 1916 to 1921, and that's the meaning of FOIRA. And Lord Daly, who is from Swords, who has all sorts of connections to guys who took part in the rising. Lord Daly is the vice chair of the society. So the three of us are active members of the Fingal Old IRA and organise commemorations and speaking events and so on. We believe that history is important to be told, and we endeavour to tell it fairly and accurately. So we're delighted to be able to have this chat with Vincent today and just a walk around the town looking at the various sites and putting the curtain picture on them. So behind us we have what's now called the mill race, which many of us would have known as John Dee's, and in 1920 it was Mrs. Smyth's pub.
Yes.
So what's your memory or the stories you heard about what happened in Mrs. Smyth's pub?
Well, most of the stories I have would be the morning after.
Right.
My mother was up there looking at the bodies of the two men that were executed, I could say, for want of a better word, but she wouldn't be off with what happened in the pub.
Sure, yeah.
She was
She wasn't a drinker.
She was fairly young at the time,
Yeah.
13, 14, around that age. Yeah. Stories all came from her. She was there that morning looking at the bodies and all that. It was, and they had to leave the house, and they went up to the bower up there, and they spent some time up there with Bankheads, a family up there called Bankheads. Right. Took them in and looked after them for 3 days. And she came back down to see her grandmother wouldn't leave the house. Right. In Key Street.
Sure. Why don't we go over and have a look? I believe the boys went in the back door of the pub, and we'll hear the rest of that story as we walk through the town. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. All right. So, this is the door that the Rock and Corcoran would have gone through. Yeah.
They were down in Connolly's pub.
Yes.
And they got the guns, and I said they come up that way. I'm presuming that.
Yes.
That would be the way to go.
Would have been the logical way.
And come up across the head, down and in there.
Right.
That'd be across the Mill Pond house.
That's right, the head they call it.
Yeah. Okay. So when they came out of Connolly's, they just went straight across the road onto the mill race. Yeah.
And they come up here. Now they might have come the other way, but
well, it would make sense. It would make sense to lock into coming in the back door and equally from the
escape route would have been the handiest up there. You were in the country up there when you were up there.
Yeah. But that's it. I mean, sort of with the town having built out so much, it changes the rationale of where everything is.
Yeah.
That sort of where was seemed to be way out in the country is now almost the centre of town. Yes.
Well, there was a row of houses up along here.
Yeah.
At one time,
that's
old. Well, they were very old cottages.
Yeah.
But they would have been up along there at the time. They could have slipped in there.
Right. So when the story effectively is that there were two RIC men, Burkes. One of them certainly was stationed in Gormanstown. Both of them had been into Dublin. Peter Burke was a head constable, and he had been told that he was going to be promoted to a district inspector, and his brother was with him, and he was a sergeant in the RIC, and they took a taxi, and they came out, presumably going back to Gormanstown.
Oh yes, on the way back.
And they stopped here for a drink.
Yes.
When they arrived in Mrs. Smyth's pub, there were some locals, and there was some members of the Black and Tans who were stationed in Gormanstown. And whatever happened, the taxi man decided to start complaining that he hadn't been paid. He wanted to go back to Dublin. There seemed to be an issue in terms of some element of disruption, rowdy behaviour in the pub, and some of the locals went and spoke with Corcoran and Gaynor and Corcoran. The Red Corcoran went in and told Michael Rock and James Dempsey, who were settling the accounts from the events of the day before, which was a Flapper Sports Day, and they were doing the accounts. They'd made a few bob. They'd actually made 98 quid out of it, courtesy of the Black and Tans, effectively, who were the main patrons of the Flapper Day. And unbeknownst to them, they had been marshalled by IRA activists during the field day, the Flapper Day. So Rock said, what do you want me to do about it? I don't even have a gun here. And Corcoran said, I'm your very man. I'll go and get you. So he arrived back with at least 2 guns. Now Gaynor's account of the story seems to suggest that there was 3 guns and that Gaynor was a third shooter in the episode. But they left the Connolly's. Correct me now if I'm getting it wrong. Yeah. And
You're right here.
yeah, they came up the mill race, up by the mill pond and so on, up to the top of the side street where the filling station is, and no, they wouldn't have gone that far.
No, they
Just up there by that shed.
Girl is coming out.
We then had a situation in terms of Rock and Redzer coming in to the pub, finding that the Tans had Monks by the throat.
Bob Monk.
Yeah, Bob Monks abusing him. Now, when I was a kid, the story I heard was that there was female staff also in the pub who were being abused by the Tans. And it's just different, different perspectives and whatever. But Rock, who effectively probably saw himself as the police because the IRA had set up its own policing system and its own courts, and that's why Rock was there, really was acting in the role of the guardian of the law, and he told them to stop misbehaving themselves and to clear out of the pub and leave the people who are living in the town to get on with their lives. And Peter Burke made a lunge at him. It was generally thought, I think in Rock's statement, he talks in terms of that they would have, whilst not been open about carrying the weapons, but they would have had some element of small arm on their person. So Burke lunged at him. Rock, there's 2 versions. Gaynor says they went in holding the guns in their hands. Corcoran suggests that they went in with the guns in their pockets. There's 2 versions of the story. One by Corcoran, that they had the guns in their pocket when they arrived into the pub, and that seems to be supported by Rock's statement. Gaynor suggests that they actually came across the street with guns in their hands. Now, as I said to you earlier, the Gaynor statement includes Gaynor as part of the shooting party, where Rock's statement suggests it was only Corcoran himself, and how Rock tells it would suggest it was only the 2 of them, because he talks about his pal and himself leaving the premises. So that would say it's 2 rather than 3. But anyhow, Peter Burke lunged at him, and Rock, whether he had it in his hands or pulled it, shot Peter Burke fatally, and then shot the brother. Corcoran himself, and maybe Gaynor, then exited through this door, and they then had 2 escape routes. They could have gone back up the way they came in, or back out onto the main street. They more than likely went to the left when they came out the door, because up there at that stage was cover. You were into the country,
and what you have a recollection of, because that was flooded up there. That was a pond. A pond, completely flooded. Yeah.
The mill.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah.
So it was a good kind of natural area for cover.
How much of it up there you were in the country?
Yeah.
That was Richardson's field apart. So
Yeah, so obviously you wouldn't run into town. You'd run
straight
into
into the crowd there.
Yeah.
Maybe
And the
back
fact
at
that the fact that Rock lived in the Knoll as well, it meant that he was heading in his natural environment, his natural direction.
Right,
For him
okay.
right in the head, you know.
Okay.
Reports is that he cycled back to the Knoll that night after the shoot, after warning people in the town.
John Gaynor stayed the next morning and went down and looked at the bodies, and he said he reported out how mutilated they were.
Yes.
Down in Keelan's little alleyway there, you know.
Yeah.
So he stayed around.
Yeah. He says he didn't stay at home, but he stayed in the town.
Yeah.
And that he was
That's
there
when
the
he met
next
your
morning.
man. He met your man, Jack
Straw.
Jack Straw.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna have a big chat about Jack Straw now soon enough as well. And he mentions that he spoke to Jack Straw that morning.
That's right.
Yeah. And interestingly, Jack Straw would appear to have been a resident of Key Street.
Living there in Key Street,
Yeah.
one of those big houses in Key Street.
Yeah.
What we might do now is move on down to Connolly's.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll have a chat. Maybe we'll go up towards the side of the medical centre,
Yes.
and we can
Yeah.
chat quietly in there as well. So we'll just take a walk down.
Okay. Good stuff.
Which way do you want to go?
We're going to go down.